This is To Wit, a podcast for women in tech doing life. I'm Christy Guzman.
And I'm Melinda Smith.
Hello.
Oh my God, this episode. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Okay, so we have the coolest guest ever. No offense to any past guests or future guests. But we have Tony Profit today, and we're super excited for our second Ally episode. We hit number 20.
Episode 20.
That's right. So no offense to whoever's on episode 30, but like big shoes to fill here. But I do want to take a quick second and get some excitement about Trailhead X, because we're going to talk about it with him a little bit. And because I'm obviously super jealous that I didn't get to go, I do have a Salesforce Blue accent toenail. So I think about Salesforce and Trailhead X every time I look at my toes. But you were there.
It was awesome. I mean, it was kind of like a chiller version of Dreamforce, since it's in one area. You got to see your friends, but then go and learn. I learned some cool things about, and now I'm blanking on everything because now I'm like, oh, I'm on the spot. All right, quick and dirty. I got to learn a lot of cool things. I got to see my friends. I got to go to my first MVP event, happy hour, which was fun and nice, and got a picture. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing the things. Tony will talk about it, but like the equality theme throughout was amazing. Learned about the new Ohanas out there. But the thing that was most awesome, and they've got this Open DX that they talked about, Leah talked about at the keynote, and it's just a smidge out of my reach, like in the sense that like I get what's going on and I get what we're going for, but there were parts of the keynote that I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening? I was like, the command line, they're like, and you just pull it down. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how to do that.
But you tried.
I mean, it's very exciting, and I will take the time to learn more, but it definitely felt like sometimes that I was looking around like, am I the only one here that's not sure what's going on?
So that's really interesting. As an admin, quote unquote, citizen developer, would you go again? Do you
heck yeah. I really enjoyed it. But it's funny for me, it's a swing between, like, I went and did some lightning sessions, and I was like, oh, I know how to build an app. Oh, I know how to do that. And then I tried to go and listen to something for like the debug log, and I was like, oh, that's okay. So I feel like I need to hone my developer skills just a little bit more, so it doesn't feel like too far reaching, because I really wanted to do more, and some of it was I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. I'm getting there.
Okay. I like it.
Like, just being around it all, like with your people, and soaking in the Salesforce love, and Mary's event, and the equality happy hour before. The concert was amazing. It was in a beautiful venue, and some of us got to meet the band, whoever like signed up for it. Then we went and did karaoke at Pandora, the place that has the like separate rooms, but we just basically took over the main room, and it was more like group karaoke, and Holly threw down some rap like she does, and it was amazing. It was awesome. And I got my yoga in like I said I would. I did not make it to Spin Cycle or Soul Cycle, even though I signed up and paid, because I was out till 1 and the class was at 6, and I was like, that's not happening.
Yeah, that's reality.
Yeah, so I paid $20 for nothing. You're welcome, Soul Cycle.
Does it hurt your soul?
Yeah. So that's my recap.
I like it.
I got to play with Quip. We got to meet some of the Quip officers or CEOs or whatever their title is. They're awesome. Quip is a ton of fun. Yeah, overall I had a great time. It's how I can't imagine. You have to go out of your way to have a bad time. I had to do some actual work while I was there, which I found terribly annoying, but such is a consultant life, right?
Adulting.
Adulting is so annoying. All right, well, shall we get to it?
Sure, we need to hear about your super. Oh no, I think that was beforehand. You want to tell the story of how you met Tony at TD Hacks?
Oh. Yeah. So I think I've met him briefly before, but I was running around trying to find a place to work, and there was a Bold Force party going on, kind of a happy hour that I popped my head into for just a second to say hi to Shauna and Mary, and he was sitting at the bar. And I was just so excited to see him. And poor man was eating, and he stuck his hand out to like shake my hand, and I accosted him and gave him a big old hug, but I think it was okay nonetheless.
He still came and talked to us. So
I'm a bit of a hugger. Warning to all.
So if you haven't heard about Tony, then I don't know how you're listening to this podcast, because you're clearly not enough of a Salesforce nerd. No, I'm just kidding. But his story is awesome. In researching, I read some great things about his history and his family life, and kind of how that brought him in a relationship with Mark Benioff and brought him to Salesforce. So we didn't get too far into that, but I think it's pretty cool for people to look into. But he is the Chief Equality Officer at Salesforce. It's a fun quiz fact if you ask how many CEOs there are at Salesforce, and people will be like, there's one, and you're like, no, there's two. Not that happened to me at Force Academy LA or anything, but he is less than a year in at Salesforce, but picked up the ball that's been rolling right along with equality and diversity efforts at Salesforce for years. So we are excited to jump in and learn more about Tony.
Tony, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you here. Very excited about it.
Melinda, hi. Great to be with you. Christy, hi as well.
Hello.
So we have been doing the podcast now for, I guess 10 months or so. And Christy had a wonderful idea when we began of every 10th episode inviting an ally guest to come on the show. We speak with women in tech often. Our little tagline is just about women in tech doing life, and we always wanted to involve more allies. So we are very happy to have you on the show, and kind of rolling right into it. We know a lot about you. I can't imagine any of our listeners don't know about you, but if maybe you could give us a little background on you and how your path took you from education and marketing to leading diversity and equality roles at Salesforce.
Okay, and I'll give you the short form of the story. Let's see. Born in Oklahoma. That's one of those things, small state, and most people don't know many people from Oklahoma. So born in Oklahoma at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, actually a lot in Oklahoma. And so grew up in the Midwest, and ultimately started working at General Motors when I was 18 years old as a co-op student. And which was a phenomenal experience, and did that for a while. Graduated from undergraduate school, working at General Motors back and forth as a co-op, throughout the whole duration for 5 years. Then had a chance to go on to grad school, and went to grad school, post-grad school, worked at Booz Allen, and just an introduction to consulting and the fast-paced world of consulting and traveling and advising, and the pressure and duress of being in a professional services firm. It's often tough work when you're working on a kind of a billable hours basis. So I did that for 8.5 years with Booz Allen in consulting, and then ultimately went to go work for a customer, which was a company that became Honeywell. It was Allied Signal at the time that became Honeywell. And this is a part of the story, my personal story, that I don't often tell, but I was the CEO of an internally funded startup company, a technology company at Honeywell. And it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was, back in the day, it was the mid-'90s. It was kind of like, let's look into the future. What's the future? And the idea was the future was all about clean energy and clean water. And so we started up a company to try to take some of the Allied Signal and ultimately Honeywell technologies into the clean energy space. And the venture was not successful. And ultimately the technology was bought out by GE. And I moved on to do a similar kind of role, not a CEO, but in a lesser capacity at United Technologies. And then I had a mentor, and this is probably one of the key lessons kind of along the way as we're talking to leaders and future leaders, was I just had my head down every day, and I had a tough go of it at Honeywell where the venture didn't succeed, and I just took the next step, and it was a step backwards, and just said, hey, I'm just dust myself off and do the best that I can, show up for work every day and put in 110%. And I had a mentor there who I got to know, and I delivered for, and I believe, and developed a good relationship with. And he went on to lead Carrier, the air conditioning company. And so at Carrier, which is now quite a famous brand, and it always has been a famous brand. It's an institution, an amazing company in air conditioning, refrigeration, generally the leader in most markets that it plays in. I went on to lead all the operations for Carrier, the air conditioning business, and that took me from being a consultant and an entrepreneur, and then being just an executive in sales and marketing in a small clean energy business to running a huge multi-billion-dollar operation. So just never saw that coming. And just one of the lessons learned, just along the way of just to kind of head down and doing my best and taking a risk here and there and building relationships and focus mostly on doing job one, but along the way kind of focused on relationships as well with maybe 5% of my energy, and that carried me into the next opportunity, and I was willing to take the jump over into an operating role, and spent the next decade being an operations person, manufacturing operations. So I ran the operations at Carrier, and then I ran most of the operations for HP, and literally all the operations for what's now called HPI. So all the printing and PC operations, manufacturing, logistics, procurement. I ran that, and it was in the HP operations role for about 8.5 years. And that's kind of my long saga in operations. Then along the way, I met some folks at Microsoft, and Microsoft was embarking on an adventure of revitalizing the Windows platform. And they asked me if I wanted to be a part of that, bringing up Windows 10 from what was Windows 8 at the time, and obviously the legacy of Windows 7 and Windows XP, Vista before it. And it was too big of a challenge not to take on, and went up to Microsoft and was involved in the gestation of Windows 10 and also leading the education marketing role there at Microsoft. And so that brings me to Salesforce, and really perfect time for me. I don't know if it's fate or luck or divine intervention, but had been spending more and more of my time at HP kind of focused on the impact that the company was having, the supply chain was having on the environment and on society and on workers around the world, and a lot of time at Microsoft focused on empowering the black employees at Microsoft and giving the black employees at Microsoft a voice, both in the company and in the community, and so those interests were growing as kind of my interest in gratification from ringing the cash register by selling devices or licenses was waning a bit, and I've been growing in my personal interest as well, in focused on education and the community and giving back, and so it's a perfect time for me, and the role became open at Salesforce, and I put my name in the hat to be the company's first chief quality officer, and here I am.
Well, and you mentioned, your schooling and then some diversity in jobs. So was your degree kind of like applying to directly what you were doing for all those other jobs before now? Because it almost sounds like you're an accidental admin, except you didn't end up being an admin. You ended up being an accidental equality admin.
Yeah, in fact, and I was just having a conversation with some folks earlier today. You think about the education system, higher education system in the U.S. and really in the world, and some elements of it really were designed for the last century or even the century before, and what today people consider a classical education. I guess it makes sense to know the classics, and I guess it makes sense to know Dickens and
Economics.
Keats, and I'm talking about the class, like Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey, and I guess it makes sense, and somehow that develops you. But when you have you think about the investment it takes in a 4-year education, and how those things don't actually prepare you for a career in the 21st century. So my undergrad education was in industrial engineering, and I took statistics and probability and calculus and engineering stuff, mechanics and fluid and thermo and heat. And I can tell you, after I graduated, probably not one time I remember ever using. I mean, test anyone who actually took calculus. Did you ever do calculus? Did you ever do one differential equation? Did you ever integrate an equation ever after you close those books? I mean, it's so rare. Then you think about a boot camp, a 14-week boot camp that a young person or a person of any age can take today, and 14 weeks, 18 weeks later, they know how to code, and it's a skill. And they didn't read Homer or learn to speak Latin along the way. And those are great things, and I'm not disparaging those, but just in terms of, investing in knowledge and skills for the 21st century, I think people have to think about being really super efficient, and that's where platforms like Trailhead, many of these great boot camps that are out there, can do things in a very a more efficient way than maybe a traditional classical kind of 4-year undergraduate education.
I had the conversation with a group of friends recently exactly along those lines. My daughter's 4, and before she was born, my husband and I had the conversation of, okay, she's going to go to college at least 1 year and then she can make a decision. And now with all of these, like you said, boot camps or Trailhead for All, or these ways to hone a specific skill, now we're kind of rethinking, like, what does that look like? Do we put her in debt already if she's kind of meandering, or if she has an idea of what she wants to do? Why don't we facilitate that? So I totally agree. There's benefits to both.
No,
Oh,
this,
but I,
this next generation. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I think it's interesting how it ties into a lot of what I heard you saying was not relying back, like you say, on diagnosing about the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, but like the skill of that you had to fall back on of keeping trying and putting in 110% and keeping showing up. I feel like to me that's almost the main part of a 4-year education is that you kept it together enough to get good grades and pass almost, as opposed to the things you're actually learning.
No, that is for sure. And there's many ways. I mean, the people often use this acronym, the grit acronym, and talking about the skills that are needed, or people talk about the um, the four C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, as being the skills that a young person needs today. Much more so than what people would have thought about as classical skills.
Right.
And now, does it take 4 years to get those things? Some people are getting a lifelong lesson in those things, in the kind of the distance that they travel to get to where they are. And we have lots of great interns here at Salesforce. One of the programs that we partner with is a program called Year Up. Hopefully, our listeners are familiar with that. And in the Year Up program, um, we have people come in and they spend basically just 6 months with us and 6 months learning, and in a year they get a tremendous amount of experience, and with that experience they're ready for the workplace, even though they may not have a 4-year degree.
We're partnering with a local high school here to bring in students over the summer and pilot a program to teach them Salesforce to then see how that. We've got interns over the summer, and then we're also trying, like a 2-hour, twice a week class here in the Map Anything office to share, our knowledge. And it's interesting how you've got these kids that have such diverse interests, and yet like really sitting in on a meeting and seeing how we relate in a business sense, like maybe that's a skill that would take them farther than, some of the other quote unquote classroom learning items. So it's really interesting to think about.
Right. So I have a chance to put all this in practice now. I have a 7-year-old, and so my wife and I are creating a whole new paradigm, and who knows how this is going to turn out. Hopefully, hopefully exceedingly well.
Fingers
But
crossed.
yeah, but we're kind of thinking about kind of early on, minimal limiting technology engagement. The technology engagement, we're trying to have them do a lot of code.org. I don't know if you, and again, I just highly recommend it to any of the listeners. If you have young people in your family, and your code.org is even suitable as a starting introduction to coding for an adult. It's just a simple way of computational thinking where you don't have to actually write syntax, and just drag and drop block-based way of programming where a 5-year-old can get it and start doing coding. So I've started doing some of that, and having him deeply immersed in learning multiple languages, Chinese being one of them. So deeply immersed in Mandarin, and just trying to train him in ways that are kind of different than kind of the classical education of what would have been from last century or the century before. So we're trying to put it into practice real life with the rising second grader.
Do you struggle with the limiting of technology when you also try and teach code? Like there's like, okay, we're going to do teaching online, code.org for an hour, but then it's reading for an hour kind of balance?
It's super tough. Yeah, and I think any parent can tell you, like the technology is a double-edged sword, and there's so much that can be gained by putting technology in a judicious way, in a measured way, in front of a 5 or 6-year-old. Starting at 5 or 6, and there's so much harm that can be done from too much of it. The challenges of putting something in front of someone, you're trying to teach them patience and perseverance, and there's instant gratification. You touch a button, something happens in like in nanoseconds, right? And then bright colors flash, and you're immediately rewarded. Where in life doesn't work like that, right? The bright colors don't flash, and you're putting in weeks and months, and there's no instant gratification. There's no bright colors flashing. There's no candy balloons or whatever, as the visual gratification. So how do you teach someone perseverance and that real accomplishments take weeks and months and years when you're training them with a tool that works in nanoseconds and can reward them, give them rewards instantly, and it's two-dimensional world of bright color and animation. It's really it's a tough paradox. We're not even a quarter of a generation into this age where kids have been exposed to all this technology, and so actually no one really knows how it will turn out. No one knows. Like if you took a child in 2008 or 9, whenever the iPad was invented, and gave that child an iPad, says you're going to learn, your whole experience is going to be learning via an iPad versus pencil and paper and books and reading. You might read on an iPad, right? How would that person turn out, 20 years later, right? No, no one knows. No one knows. It's a bold, and I think so we work to really balance that, to minimize it, to occasionally reward through entertainment, and digital media, but generally try to find some other form of reward, and then use the technology, principally for the learning that you can only do on technology. Like encoding is a great example of that, where reading you can do on with paper, and lots of studies show that actually reading, and writing with pencil and paper and books is longer retention and better learning, and taking notes is versus typing them. Taking notes by hand, or you have better retention because you have to edit and process and think about it, make it concise, because you can't write as fast as you can type.
Well, I will say I am over 30 and I am still motivated by the swag that y'all provide. So to me, maybe that's the bright and shiny reward that I'm still taking. But I also take notes in a notebook, which when I started, it was like our new Salesforce admin takes notes in a notebook. But maybe I'm old school, but maybe it's also helping me. I'm going to tell him now that Tony told me that it will help.
Well, there's lots of studies out there that if you type something versus writing it, because you're writing so slow, you go, now how do I get this down in half the words of what the professor or
right.
Whomever I'm listening to said, and you have to, that processing helps create a deeper engram of memory. So that's why that's what I believe, and that's kind of what we're practicing.
So we love Salesforce, clearly. And I have always been very proud to be part of the company for their give back to the community and their inclusion. And I feel like they've always been conscious, but titles like Chief Equity Officer or Director of Diversity and Belonging they're pretty new to this business world, I feel. Like, how have you seen that personally improve business and employee morale and bringing people in? I mean, I can only imagine it's done great, but I'm curious as how that's seen through your eyes.
Yeah, I think the title, there's no power or magic in the title, but I think it's the creation of the role and the emphasis on it, and having a team, because we have a small team here that comes in every day and is thinking about the culture and making the culture diverse and inclusive. I think is super powerful. Versus letting it happen organically, trusting it to human nature or momentum, versus, hey, there's people day in, day out that are thinking about these things, that are learning, that are listening, that are going outside the organization and looking and finding best practices. I think is super powerful. This is, I think, a relatively new phenomena for us to speak in tech, for sure, of having dedicated folks really focused on this, that are empowered by the CEOs and listen to in some cases their findings get float up to the boards of companies, and so I think we're early. The results largely are still ahead of us, but you start to see some early signs of progress, certainly here at Salesforce.
I mean, it's only been 9 months, but you've done a lot, I think, and for other companies that may not have as forward thinking of leadership, or just have a dedicated role, what is something maybe small that you've seen or would suggest that people can do today, I might not have this as my 100% job, but what kind of things can I be more aware of to be a better ally?
Yeah. Yeah. On the 9 months point, one thing I would say is um, that the company has had the notion that it could be an agent for good, and that it has this higher purpose. It goes really back to the founding. And then in terms of the fight for equality in the company, there's been so many great leaders, that predated me, that I'm just simply now partnering with them because they're still in the fight. People like Cindy Robbins, people like Layla Seca. I mean, think about the courage and the leadership that they showed, back in 2015, coming to Mark saying, "Hey, we have a pay problem, um, and we're not sure that women are paid the same as men for the same work," and the courage it took to do that, and then the tenacity, and it took to go get the data and to show that there was in fact a gap, and then the courage on Mark's part to, one, to listen, and two, to act. Um, so my role is new, but boy, the leadership in this company, there's so many players, Andrea Lezick and Sarah Franklin, I could go on, right, who have just been here, fighting the good fight. Many of them, have been with the company more than a decade, or some of them have, right? And so what I'm doing is now a continuation. I'm partnering with those folks, um, learning from them, listening to them carefully, working to empower them, promote what they continue to do, because they're doing it naturally, as part of their just their makeup, their psyche, their persona. This is what they do, organically as leaders. As for what others can do, I think the first is to just to begin to lean in some meaningful way. Um, you know, um, we're calling it being an ally, here at Salesforce, and trying to get people from all walks of life to be allies to people from other walks of life, and as well as advocating, for where their natural affinity group, lies. In fact, we're launching a campaign this month, an ally campaign, and literally to try to get all 25,000 plus people in the Ohana, the Salesforce extended family, to lean in and become an ally to one of our Ohana groups. And so, the Bold Force, for example, is for blacks and African Americans, and but you don't have to be black to be in Bold Force. You can just be an ally who wants to help in equality and empowerment for that particular diverse group, and likewise across all the other 8 Ohana groups that we have.
I picked up all the stickers for that, and I'll make sure we list them in the show notes. I'm super excited about that, and actually a kind of a little side story. A friend of mine that's a new women in tech leader group leader, now is going to be reaching out to Latino Force and figuring out how she can get involved. So it's already making an impact, and it's I'm very excited to see how it goes. I want to be involved in all of them.
Yeah, because we're standing on we're already with a great foundation. We have about 1 in 4 in the Ohana, more or less, who are active in the Ohana groups. But the question is, why isn't it 1 in 1, really? And and so that's really our objective. Our work isn't done till everyone, is allied with someone, you know, um, uh, even if they're a member of the so-called majority, white, Caucasian, cisgendered, heterosexual male. Um, there's a great cause for them to be those folks to be allied with other people from other walks of life as well.
Well, and I think it's interesting how you say it as of walks of life, that even on paper, Melinda and I are similar, right, from a, cisgender Caucasian female perspective, but there's still so much to learn. And I think it's easy to assume that diversity and those kinds of things don't apply to me because I am in that piece. And we've talked previously about, if I'm not experiencing specific like women degradation type challenges or not, internalizing them the same way. But I think we all have a voice that is different than someone else just based on experience and, all those different things that there's, I think it's easy to look at different buckets, but really like how can all those things overlap and how can everyone find a place, I think is really awesome.
Right. I won't name the person, but I had a great conversation a along these lines with one of the leaders at Salesforce, and just talking about their personal story. And one of the things that we're doing is just encouraging everyone, regardless of their walk of life, to share their personal story. And this person saying, "Hey, you might think that I'm a member of the majority, but I grew up in a rural setting, and I literally grew up on a farm, and when I went to college, and I always felt different than other people that lived in urban life, and I always felt a little different and left out and excluded because I didn't have all these things in common with them that they." And this is the person you would just look at the person, and just think, on appearances, you would think, well, this is clearly someone who fits in as a member of the majority, et cetera, right? But then saying on the inside, you don't even know on the inside that I've had this whole journey of coming from a different walk of life and feeling different and at times excluded because of that, that unique perspective that, the person was, courageous enough just to share, just saying, hey, we all have a different journey we're traveled, and I think everyone's got a unique story, when they start sharing it. I just encourage folks to listen.
I think everyone can say they've felt different or left out. I would say in most people I've talked to too that seem like the life of the party or have everything going, have had their moments of, I don't feel like I fit in, or, I don't feel like this group is really my group. So, I mean, I've listened to everybody's story. I think is really important to just get to know one another. And I feel like the Salesforce creates that environment. I mean, just even the conferences, just going there and talking to people, and you go out of your way to talk to strangers. And I know I can think of a couple people that struggle with that in general and don't at Salesforce events or at Trailhead DX. They were going out of their way to talk to other people and get to know someone else's story and break out of the bubble.
Yeah, there's something special here. You said earlier that you love Salesforce, and I spent, I was first introduced to Salesforce kind of around maybe 2010, 2009, and started coming to Dreamforce and just saying, wow, there's something different, there's something special.
When it actually all fit in Moscone Center.
Yeah, back in the day, right? But it was still, ginormous. And now, and then along the way, just every interaction, because I was only going to Dreamforce. I wasn't doing, any of the other events. And just, be like the event not to be missed every year. I'd make sure I was in town for it, and find my way there, and just get intoxicated by the fun and the magic and the glimpse into the future, and the charm and charisma of all the people, the people, the culture, the company, saying, boy, wouldn't it be great someday to work for that company, right? So.
Well, and what I think is interesting is, what we were talking about of really it's about everyone has a story and learning from each other. I think it's really interesting to see a company like Salesforce, from what I saw on Twitter, participating in things like Pride in San Francisco, and how you think about that as not just about supporting gay rights specifically, but just about being so much more like being okay with everybody, right? And that it's not, I mean, in that case, it is kind of one specific target, but I think it's great to see, from a corporate perspective, taking a stand on something like that, which is kind of unique. So I guess, for our listeners who are in a leadership perspective and role and might be able to have that kind of impact, is that how you see like what they need to be doing, is getting involved with those kind of existing things, or is it kind of finding their own specific niche way to have an impact locally?
No, absolutely. You pointed specifically to Pride, and that was around the world. I mean, because the Pride is continuing. It's a season, no longer like a month. And so it was, but San Francisco was absolutely epic. I also went to Pride in Indianapolis, which is for us, and the fight for equality is kind of ground zero, given the stance that we took there, along with other companies, against some of the legislation that had passed there. And again, just an epic celebration, and to see people come and to see them bring their partners and significant others and spouses, and they see them bring their children and have just this amazing, fun, family-friendly event. In both cases, kind of soaked in the sunshine and just music and fun, but a celebration of the LGBTQ community, and just the fight for equality and standing with them in empowerment and equality of the LGBT community was phenomenal. And we had I don't know if you saw our San Francisco celebration, we had the flags from every Ohana group they're representing all the diverse communities, showing their allyship, their alliance with Outforce, which is our LGBTQ.
And if you threw a summer release party, then you already had a rainbow hat that you could bring.
I know. Yes, that was awesome. That was awesome. So yeah, I'm making sure like the swag along the way that I'm hanging on to it for the next event. So I got the wristband in Indy, and I got the various versions of the T-shirt. I got a limited edition Outforce T-shirt where it's actually a black T-shirt instead of the Salesforce blue T-shirt. So not many of those around. So I'm hanging on to that, and I'm off to Berlin for I think it's the 26th of July for Pride in Berlin, and so they call it Christopher Street Day in Berlin. So really looking forward to that, and I'll celebrate that with my wife and my youngest, and my wife who is actually a German native. So
Did you
we'll have
say
fun over
youngest?
there.
You have more than a 7-year-old you spoke of?
Well, my youngest is 7, and he'll be with us. He's a dual citizen, so he has a U.S. passport and a German passport.
Ooh.
At 3.
Oh, okay. I think I missed
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, 22, 21, and 7.
Aw.
And I'm able to, because the experiment's been going on long enough, now I can see what happened with the 22-year-old based on some certain parenting techniques and saying, well, these things seem to work, and here's some things probably won't do that again.
Right. My poor kiddos, that's it. She's one and done, so hopefully I'm doing okay.
I was going to say, I'm the third time's a charm kid myself, and I turned out all right. So, but we were much closer together, so they didn't have time to tweak their methods too much.
So, Tony, I have to say that I am very disappointed I missed your panel at Trailhead DX, because I was volunteering at the community station. I would love to hear a little bit more about your panel. I know it'll be posted, but I know that you had the opportunity to speak with some amazing leaders. If you wouldn't mind just telling us a little about it.
Yeah, and so we kicked off the panel just with an overview of the things that we're doing for equality, and we gave the top level messaging for the company, what the swim lanes are, where we're really fighting for equality, standing for equal rights, standing for equal pay, standing for equal access to great K-12 STEM-based education, and then standing for equal opportunity, which we define as diversity and inclusion inside the business, where we have the industry has a lot of work to do, we have a lot of work to do. Then we talked about our campaign, which is called Proudly Me, and this is something that we launched coincident with Pride, where it's a campaign through which, on a voluntary basis, employees in the U.S. can self-identify in a confidential way. They can self-identify their sexual orientation. They can self-identify their gender identity, and just a way for them to bring their whole authentic self to work, put that into the system of record, which is Workday in this case, and to self-identify, and then on a public basis, and this is also voluntary, to share their pronouns, and just encouraging everyone in the U.S. Again on a voluntary basis to share their pronouns. Why is that important? Well, because if some people are sharing their pronouns, and people are guessing their pronouns, they're guessing wrong. I mean, there's very few things more offensive than someone getting your pronouns wrong, right? And so I guess it's okay if someone messes up your name or forgets your name. That happens all the time. But getting someone's pronouns wrong is something that's deeply offensive. And so some people are putting their pronouns out there, but then if you're the only one putting them out there, then people are saying, well, what's that a signal for? How come they're putting their pronouns out, but no one else is? We want to make sure that everyone's putting them out there. No one should have to presume that my pronouns are he, him, and his. I just put them out there. Those are my pronouns, so that if you tell me your pronouns, then you don't have to feel uncomfortable sharing yours, because I'm also sharing mine, and trying to create, a safe environment for everyone to be their whole self. Then we had a great panel of technology leaders, and talking about the intersection of technology and its intersection with equality and the fight for social justice in a couple different domains. And so the video is out there for replay, and it's gotten some interest. And also along with the campaign for self-identification, there's also a video associated with that you can find on YouTube. Just go Salesforce Proudly Me, or Be Proudly Me Salesforce. You'll find it on YouTube, and that's also gotten quite a bit of attention, over 100,000 views. I don't tell anyone that I loved it so much that 90,000 of those views are me. I'm just but no, it's been widely viewed, and so and we've had some good reactions, some great feedback to it as well. So it was a great example of Sarah Franklin and the Trailhead team just just putting equality, throughout the whole day. It just was a phenomenal, 2 days actually, with the reception the night before and into the next day. It was just a phenomenal multi-day event with the thread of equality pulled throughout.
I saw tweets of Mary Scotton's equality shoes.
Yes, I knew the event was coming. I didn't know about the shoes, so that's a nice surprise. And well deserved. I mean, Mary has just been an amazing trailblazer and leader and ambassador and advocate, for equality for all on every dimension, throughout the company. I intersected with Mary literally on my first day on the job. We connected, and she's been, a counselor and a partner to me, throughout, my tenure here at Salesforce.
You hear that a lot about her.
She's got a great shoe collection, great friend collection. She's
Well, the question is it better than Chris Duarte's, shoe collection?
It is certainly not as glittery.
It's different. We'll say it's a different vein.
She's got Calvin and Hobbes Converse, so I feel like it's just a different nerd level, which I appreciate. All nerds are welcome.
Okay, it's orthogonal. It's orthogonal.
Tony, I know I speak for both of us when I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. It was kind of a random shot in the dark that we thought, why don't we just ask the biggest ally that we can think of? And we're flattered and very honored to have you on the show.
Oh, yeah, it's been an absolute delight, and super thankful for your interest. I really have strived, when I've had so many people reaching out to me from around the company and around, the world, inside and outside the company, in the community and outside of it, and I've done my best to try to get back to folks and just listen. I mean, there's just so much that we don't know as a company, that I certainly don't know as a leader, and only by connecting with people outside the company. Or people outside yourself, me and inside the company, people like Mary and Layla and Cindy and Sarah and many, many others, can I make progress, and can we make progress collectively?
I'm excited to see what you're cooking up for Dreamforce.
Oh, it's going to be epic. We're cooking. It's on the back burner now. It's getting onto the front burner, now kind of post the Pride season. And we really want to make it epic and, build upon this notion that Sarah and team have innovated, of really having equality woven throughout the event. So stay tuned. It's going to be not to be missed. And registration, I think, is open soon. So
it's
likewise.
open.
So definitely. Definitely register soon.
Will we have an opportunity to see you before then? 124 days till Dreamforce, but will you be at any community events or any opportunity for anyone to see you?
My plans are, I'm going to do Pride in Berlin, and then I got so many things lined up. I'm sure there will be, right? I'm going to do town hall in Bangalore, India.
Ooh.
Okay, going to do town hall in Singapore. Then I'm going to go on to Tokyo, and just again listen, go around the world, and just try not to take the San Francisco or the Tony lens of what equality is. Just go to these places, really pay attention, listen, take it in. What are the real issues? What's going on? So kind of do a little around the world trip, then come back, and I think I'm going to be in Atlanta. I think sometime in September. There's a couple things lined up, so I think certainly there'll be an opportunity. But by July is going to be kind of this around the world, see Berlin, Hyderabad, Singapore, Tokyo.
Nice. Well, post us pictures on Twitter so we can live vicariously.
Oh, you can count on it.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, Melinda, Christy, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
So I think that it will be quite clear to our listeners that we were a little nervous. I was nervous. I just wanted to make a good impression. So I feel like a lot of pregnant pauses and...
No, you're going to edit all that out, right? We'll sound super adult and awesome and amazing. So thank you, Tony, for bringing some legitimacy and class to our podcast. No, I'm just teasing. But I do think that there's just so many interesting things that Tony talked about that aren't even necessarily diversity related, right? He just is like so awesome and great and referred to so many other awesome and great people. Like my brain's exploding. But I think some of the great things that came up to me were, that like keep trying 110% like let it knock you down, but get back up mentality. I think that's really awesome. And how that having a mentor paired with that helped, right? So, even in preparing to talk to Tony, right? And like, this is an important dude, right? I have people that I went to say like, help me, right? And they lifted me up with gifts and reinforcement and Bitmojis and just wonderful support. Like, you can do it. You've got this, So I think even getting him and asking for, right, is a great example of that. So kudos to you for just being like, oh, hey, let's just ask Tony if he wants to come on the podcast. I will also say I have since Googled the GRIT acronym because I could see your face while we were recording, and I'm not sure that you knew what it meant either.
No, I got grits, though. Lots of pictures of grits.
There's
like a recipe. I was like, that's not what I'm asking.
There's a variety of things, but I believe growth, resilience, either integrity or initiative, and tenacity.
Wow. Ooh, I like it.
I think are what we're focusing on. But just some really great points and some things for you as a parent that I don't even think about.
Well, I mean that, except for there's not going to be another trial run.
Well,
one and done. Doesn't he make you feel like, I'm like, I want to go out and volunteer right now. I want to go out and like support somebody and help someone. And and as you know, I've missed that with not having the women in tech group. And I keep missing the local ones. I finally put my chatter feed on every post. But yeah, he is encouraging. Just his way about him and his presence makes you want to do more. And that is, so essential, like that role as a person, like just you talking to me makes me want to do more. That's good stuff to put out there, good human stuff to put out there.
Well, and even just like what we were talking about last episode with presenting at Dreamforce and like get out of your own way and just do it. And there's somebody who can learn something from you. I think it's interesting to think about that as, there's something that people can learn from you, from me, from anybody. That half of that is listening, but part of that is talking as well, right? And just because I'm not a minority, technically, like that I still have a point of view that could, and a point of view that could educate or, impact someone else, I think is really great. So the last thing I think, not that I have to list out, I could talk about this all night long, but one thing I thought was interesting, we was talking about traveling to other cities, and he talked about not taking the San Francisco Tony lens.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this a lot recently too, about, sometimes how it's interesting how you think something so committedly, and then something happens to just kind of shift the lens, and it's like, oh, yeah, what about this, and that? Like, you are right, because blah, 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 right? And so
travel does that a lot for you, I feel.
Yeah. Just like how you assume things are going to be and how American we are.
Yeah. It's just like anything from, the brief time I lived in Italy, like it's amazing how you don't realize the a variety of food choices like we have. Like I was in college town and it was pizza, pasta, or paninis. Like that was it. Like those were your
only
choices.
P-lettered foods.
Yeah, right. But like, and people's differences, like it wasn't uncommon to kind of wear the same thing every day because it was comfy and it was hot there. Like little things that you're like, oh, I could wear this tomorrow. I don't have to do laundry. That sounds amazing. And people are, I like to still generally believe that people are very kind and welcoming and open, and travel just 100% nails that.
Well, cross your fingers that I'll convince my people that I need to attend Surf Force, and then I'll report back about whether or not that's true.
Did I tell you I couldn't go even if I financially made it work?
No.
I'm officiating a wedding the same day. So,
okay. Those priorities are allowed.
Yeah. It's one thing if I was like, I'm not going to go to your wedding, but I'm like, I can't be like, I'm not going to go. Hope someone marries you. Like,
good luck. Bye. Yeah, I'm going to go. Bye. Thanks, Ohana.
Can we Skype?
Yeah. Can I Skype my way in? Yeah. So I don't want to have a pregnant pause that I completely
Yeah.
lost my train of thought, but that happened. Yeah, keeping it time frame.
Yeah.
Tighten it down. Do you have a super fave that you would like to share?
100%. Let's talk about stickers. Two things. I'm going to put something out there. God, should I put it out there? Yeah, I'm
Yes.
going to make this happen.
Yes, please.
So one is the Codey sticker. It's the Say Anything Codey the Bear sticker. He's like holding up a boombox, and it is it's
love it.
amazing. It's amazing, and I love it. So I was talking to the gift squad, and you know how you have those inserts if you were a baseball card collector? You have them for the cards. I want Salesforce, and I'm going to call like Mary and all of them and see if they can make a sticker book holder collector, because a lot of them you don't want to put on something yet, and then you just hold them in this weird spot, like a
We've talked
Salesforce
about
or
this.
Dreamforce sticker book collection holder. I want it to happen.
Interesting. But then I wouldn't, but then if you, okay. But if it was a book that had like a spot for that sticker, then what if I didn't get that sticker and then I'm going to be sad?
Oh no, I meant like just to hold your stickers. You can organize it however you want.
Oh.
No, you can't. Oh my God, don't give me like what I couldn't have. I'll like lose my mind. I already have a hard enough time with not having all the
We talked about
modules
this
on
before
track.
where it's like I don't want to put it on my laptop and that they're my special stickers.
Yeah.
Like what is happening in my brain? But like that's a thing. Like
I saw Jen Lee.
the unicorn Astro sticker, like
yeah.
you're not just putting that anywhere, people.
Oh yeah, that went right in the middle over the Apple logo, so it lights up. The other thing Jen Lee and I were talking about is like, stickering your laptop, and she's like, but my gosh, it's it sucks when your laptop dies, you have to get a new one. I was like, oh, I'll rip it off. I will rip the lid off and frame it somewhere. And she was like, wow, all right. That is aggressive.
I will make it happen.
Oh, I'm keeping this lid if it kills me. All right, what's your super fave? PIC?
I mean, I got registered for Dreamforce, and that was just great. It was a little bit Panic at the Disco, that morning that it's open.
Always, yeah.
And I was able to jump in and help our events team get people registered for here because we take a super excited crew from the Map Anything team.
Awesome.
So it's crazy to me that we're talking about Dreamforce in July, except it's not crazy, and I'm excited already, even though it's not coming until November.
124 days.
There's literally a website. Ooh, how about that's my super fave? Is it dreamforceyet.com? I believe.
I think so.
We'll tell you. And you can even tweet from there once you get there to admit that you're a nerd and you went there. But the countdown is on, people.
It is. I'm excited. The registering in the hotel and the pages going away and the hotels being like banana price, that was a little shocking, but what are you going to do?
I think it's tough. I mean, I get it from an events perspective. It's supply and demand. And
yeah, I know,
these
but
things
still,
are-
don't you
I
feel like
mean-
they're gouging for no reason? Like, because they can, but like, can someone please just be a kind one and say, no, let's not do that? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, there's no win for losing on it either. I mean, well, and the thing
Yeah.
too is, we were specifically targeting hotels around Union Square, so I wasn't trying to get in right next door. So I think everyone's kind of got a different perspective, but it's always going to be tough. The ticket price going up is tough too, but again, like, it's growing. Like,
Yeah.
all this stuff is not free. I don't know.
Sure.
I get it, and I also am in the wonderfully fortunate position that I am not paying for any of it myself. So it's tough for me to have a leg to stand on to complain. Obviously I'm not going to go spend a whole bunch of money on food and go crazy with expensing all kinds of things unless I'm with salespeople. So, just kidding. If you're my boss and you're listening to that, it was a joke. But it is tough, and I think it'll be interesting to see how, maybe with events like Trailhead X, if you've got more events that are geared toward developers, then maybe the argument is there to not go to a Dreamforce if you can send 2 people. But hotels weren't cheap during Trailhead X either. Then you get into the whole should it continue to be in San Francisco conversation, and that's just a rabbit hole we do not have time to go down, Melinda.
Yeah, I kind of lost my mind because I was supposed to get a text at like 7 a.m.
Do not even give me that face. I totally texted you.
Here's the deal. You did.
As soon as I woke up, because no one texted me.
I don't know where my mind was at. It's always like this. You sit at your computer until it opens, but for some reason, I heard the night before because I was out to the crack. It's open, here's your code, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whatever, I'll do it in the morning. I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I didn't set an alarm. I didn't put any, I didn't have any urgency for some reason. I completely forgot that it is like a sprint to register. It was
kind of a sneak attack.
I just
especially during another event happening, I think is kind of interesting. But, I think it's interesting too, like, even in a company of our size, things happen that I don't know about. And then it's like, oh, okay, sure, that's happening. So,
I'm totally fine with it. I mean, I can't even care too much. Like, as long as I get to go, we'll work out the hotel thing.
I'll sleep somewhere.
Yeah, right. I'll figure it out.
Get me there. Get me stickers.
Worst case scenario, we have friends that are near Golden Gate Park, and I will just lay on their floor.
Camp.
Yeah, right. I just forgot that you have to be on it. I was like, I'll get to that when I get to it. Why?
Oh, you'll sleep somewhere. Yeah, it'll work out.
We're meandering again,
and it'll be wonderful.
Like it.
And you're right. Dang it! I was trying to keep it together, and then as soon as you say Dreamforce, I just shiny object. Well, I hope that you had a lovely 4th of July holiday weekend. Mm-hmm. Anybody in the U.S., really anywhere, really. You still had a 4th of July. It just was a random Tuesday, probably. And stay witty.
Bye.